Hey, Liberty Bell. This is Mr. Brooks again, back in the excellent room. And today I'm just recording essentially a quick introduction. I have been spending the week getting a little bit caught up on what's going to happen for all of us after spring break, just in terms of delivering material and how we're going to orchestrate things. I've also been getting caught up on my daily drawings in the Art Is packet. I have gotten all the way now through, I think, number 11. Which, if you started on day number 1, which would be March 23rd, and you went 11 straight days, that's where you'd be at. Honestly, until 2 days ago, I was like 4 behind. So I did a lot of catching up over the last couple days. Totally okay. If that's where you're at, that's where you're at. I just hope that you're doing something and that you are trying some of it out, that you've done a little bit of experimenting and playing and thinking about art. So today, I have 2 daily drawings for you that I'm going to transition over to. I had to film them a little bit differently, and we'll have you take a look at them after I leave the screen. No screen sharing today. One of them is me doing a drawing, I believe, of the Terrified prompt of a dog that we used to have, Max. And once upon a time, I tried to write a book about Max, which has been rejected numerous times and has yet to find a publisher. Someday here I'll get around to trying to send that out again. But perseverance, that's the way it works. Anyway, in that drawing, I'm playing with a marker, some crayon, a colored pencil, right, experimenting with different materials. And then in my second prompt for the word unified, I do a little bit of old school kind of comic illustration. So first I'll draw things with a blue pencil, and then I will use a black ink line over top of it. So anyway, if that is of interest to you, if you would like to see me creating 2 daily drawings, keep watching this video, and I will be back again soon with some more to share. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody, and take care out there. Bye.
Okay, for this second daily drawing on April 2nd, better put this here, boom. I'm gonna step away from our new dog Quince for a little bit. The prompt for this one is Terrified, and this is a drawing that I've done a lot of the time for when I visit schools. I have a book. Now this dog may end up looking a lot like the way I draw Quince, but we used to have a dog named Max, and when I visit schools, I oftentimes talk about how you can use sort of ups and sort of downs to sort of indicate sort of an emotion, right? And the very simple sort of like up is happy and down is really sad or really scared, right? So then I would oftentimes draw this picture of our dog Max, where maybe he was like not super happy and he was feeling very scared or sort of terrified, and a dog or very sad. And dogs, they'll kind of get down really small. They may be quite big, but then they'll get down and make themselves really, really, really tiny when they're scared or afraid of something, right? And they'll kind of like tuck themselves into sort of a little ball. I can't show his tail here because I have kind of this limited amount of space, but I'm trying a different color. I'm using some purple. But his ears they're sagging so low, they're like down on the ground, right? And his eyes, he's kind of looking up. He's really, really, really uncertain. Max was kind of a husky, so he has this little mask around his face, and then just that little sort of eyebrow looking up. Like, oh, what's happening? And then his paws tucked underneath, right? So, oh, look at that, my pencil broke. So, if you're thinking about how to sort of show someone scared or frightened or sad, then you want to think about things that can go down. So like his eyes are sort of drooping down. Maybe he has a little tear under his eye, right? I would say terrified is kind of a strong emotion, and maybe this one doesn't like play with that quite as much as it could. So you could exaggerate some things even more, right? Maybe he's whimpering and he's shaking. So you can think about those little details when you're adding extra information to try to communicate an emotion in a drawing. Maybe as a dog, like when they're scared too, they have like little hackles, like little hair goes up on the back of their neck. So I could work that in there just a little bit. And since Max was a black dog, in this case I am actually using just this colored pencil to sort of color this in a little bit, creating my terrified version of Max. I didn't have a purple pen, so unlike my other drawings that I've tried using these multiple tools for, I didn't have I don't have a purple pen, so I'm sort of trying to shade it in with this colored pencil. I did find a purple crayon. Let's see what that does. That's kind of nice. So it's nice. Like at my desk at home, I'm at school right now, but at my desk at home, I have a pot of colored pencils. I have some watercolor paints. I just have a bunch of things. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna use the side of this crayon and try to give like a really light texture to this bottom half of my drawing. Then if I use the side of it, I don't see lines, which is kind of nice. But we don't know why. Now we don't know why he's so terrified. I do remember though that Max did not like thunder, didn't like lightning. So maybe if I make it look like it's kind of raining, and maybe there's a puddle on the ground. I'm gonna have to use my other tools for that. So there's water and dripping, right? We can have layers of the different raindrops. There can be some light ones. There can be some dark ones, and now it's looking really wet. And there we could even, if we want to make him look even a little more sort of sad, kind of add some extra shadow underneath his eyes, and maybe too to give him even more reason for being, truly terrified instead of just sad or lonely or left outside by himself. Maybe there's like some big sort of lightning, and I don't know, what does lightning sound like? It's like crack. Right, so I've got my lightning bolt sort of there, and I've got my big sort of boom kind of cracking sound. So the last thing I'm going to do to try to, I think, finish this drawing off is I'm going to go back to my other like highlighter, and we'll just give it a few more sort of layers of color. This purple that I'm kind of playing around with. I'm even going to go back in here and make some like shadowy areas underneath him. The whole thing is a little bit darker. Maybe it feels a little more scary, a little more terrifying. And then I think maybe the last thing I can do is just, again, sort of add to that separation of, or just highlight, some of these little, he's all soaking wet. All right, on that, I like how the marker there, it almost makes it look like a reflection. That sort of brushiness makes it look like the ground is really wet. That was just an accident. I did not plan that. So a lot of times art can be accidental and still turn out pretty good. Okay, I think that's good. I'm feeling like I've continued my homage to dogs. Done a little bit with terrified or extremely sort of sad and sort of whimpery with my old dog Max there. I look forward to showing you another daily drawing soon. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. Bye. Hello, and back again here with another daily drawing. The prompt for this one is United, and you'll see here that, as I've talked about all along in this series of video conversations with my students, I messed up when I printed this book. I think this is actually our 11th sort of prompt and not the 7th. So I made a typo. You're gonna make typos. We all make mistakes. For United, I'm gonna diverge a little bit away again from my dogs. You know, I'm sure, like many of you, I've been thinking about how in all of this stuff with COVID-19 and whatnot, we can be helpful in our own way, so that we are in fact united as a group and trying to solve this problem, which is definitely like a national problem at this point. So I'm sketching with a blue colored pencil. Now this, a lot of you might know this already, some of you may not, but in sort of old school like comic making, you would draw with a blue pencil first, and then you could trace over it with your black ink, right? And so any sort of things that you didn't like with the blue pencil, eventually you would photocopy this, and that like photocopy would only show the black ink and not the blue ink. So this is a way of kind of sketching, kind of being pretty loose, and then trying or then saving your best sort of marks with like the black line. Now what I'm attempting to draw here is one of my comic characters from my Heart's Past comic, and this is Kit. She is the baby Wolverine, and she, in her sort of effort to be united, is washing her hands. And hopefully by washing her hands, right, she is helping to flatten the curve and keep things from spreading, keep diseases from transferring either to her or her family members or other people in her community. So this is very simple, but whenever I think about my comic characters, I think about okay, these are Wolverines. That's the subject, the main sort of thing I draw in my comic. But they live kind of on the fringes of this human community, right? So she, you know, could be helping to flatten the curve, and I might write that down here. Oh, I don't know if I'll be able to fit it all in there. That's okay. She can help to flatten the curve by washing your hands and taking good care of things like social distancing and all that kinds of stuff, right? So that's good. I got that sketched in there. What I'm going to do next, I have this little brush pen. A lot of times I draw my comics now using a stylus on the iPad. And what I like about that is that you can do this sort of same thing you can with brushes, where you can have thick and thin lines. But since we are also on this break all about experimenting with different possibilities, I thought I would show you what it looks like to use that brush pen. And you can probably imagine too, if you just squint a little bit, you can see that those blue lines sort of disappear. Now, one thing that I noticed is I want Kit to be looking down at her hands just a little bit more. So I'm adjusting sort of where her eyes go. She's a little worried. She's trying to be careful. So I put that extra line underneath. So the blue sketch I drew is a little bit higher up, but I wanted her to be looking down at her hands, right? So I moved that. And if I were to scan this ink, I could make all those blue lines also go away. Or if I made a photocopy of it, you wouldn't see those blue lines anymore. You would just see my black lines with all of their sort of different qualities. Oh, you know what I forgot? I completely forgot to draw Kit's ear. So Wolverines have these little, little tiny kind of triangular shaped ears. We'll do this in some future video, but one thing that's interesting about being an illustrator, being an artist of any kind, is taking something from nature, taking something that you see, and then simplifying it or changing it, right? Like I'm not trying to draw a realistic Wolverine necessarily, so I can modify. Now, I want her to look like she's scrubbing her hands and using some soap, right? So I'm kind of getting a soapy sort of drip, and then I can also draw a few lines for some movement here, right? One thing that I know I want to do later as part of my video series is I want to try making some sort of public service messaging, right? Like using art to sort of tell a story, using art to sort of ask for some community action or to get a message out. Can't really see it based on the way that Kit is posed here, but Wolverines also have this little tiny sort of flashing on their front, and everyone has like a different chest marking. Hers is a little V shape, so I'm going to just draw the littlest bit that I can see. Now the last bit that I'm going to do here in this daily drawing is just like we're imagining this little stream, and then she's helping to flatten the curve. I kind of liked how her feet and the weight of her flatten out that hillside, right? So we can trace that over so we'd see that a little bit better. What I'm hoping, what I guess I'm considering now that I'm trying these Instagram videos, is that these are what I guess we'll call these B.E.A.R chats with Brooks. And B.E.A.R stands for Back in the Excellent Art Room, which is the longer name of some videos I've been doing to share with my kids to a YouTube channel. But I'm trying to make these a little bit shorter. With just a little bit of a different intention. And I probably will combine this one with the other one I made today into a longer one that can live someplace else. So here now that I'm using this brush pen and it's got this thick and thin line possibility, right? I want to use that to my advantage, and I'm just going to do a little bit more with this drawing here to give some interesting kind of texture to the waves. A little bit of water washing up. Sometimes in my comic I use a little bit of line to create a place where there might be a shadow. The trick in doing that always is to try to make it kind of thick and thin so it falls away. Last thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to mix mediums here a little bit. I am going to very lightly, like as a cartoonist, or in my comic, I'm generally also coloring things digitally. So once upon a time I did all of the lines in ink on paper just like this with the blue line. I mean, this is probably like 3 years ago before I got my nicer iPad. And then I used to color them digitally in Photoshop. But for the sake of this daily drawing illustration for United, I will do just a little bit of shading with this black Prismacolor pencil. Just to polish this off a little bit and, to give me a little more time to have this art conversation. So most of Kit, the little Wolverine here, most of her body is just gray or kind of a light black. So I'm just gonna give that kind of a once overall treatment there. And this won't end up being too fancy of a drawing, but it'll have kind of a nice unity to it, or a nice sort of finished look to it. And then her bow is a little bit darker, so I'm using a little bit more pressure. I did a little video on value studies earlier, and so very similar thing. And now I can do that with a black colored pencil instead of a black or a gray kind of lead pencil. So I'm feeling the pressure. I'm feeling myself pushing down harder, and I actually want there to be a little darker shading on this part of the bow in her hair that's a little farther behind, and that's good. Now, in just kind of in just a circular motion, I'm gonna go over the rest of her again, and then also a little bit on her hand right there. Nice. I'm gonna even, so where I have the little bits of shadows, I know this is kind of slow and maybe not all that super interesting, although maybe you find it interesting. If I talk you through it, then maybe you can try it yourselves, right? So where I've got the shadow from those lines, I'm also adding just a little more shadow with a little more pressure over top. And I think you can tell that it's not three-dimensional, but it also makes that tail look like it's a little farther behind, and it adds a little bit of extra interest to what's going on and how these shapes kind of fold together. She has one more leg over here that's kind of farther behind, and then this little bit right around the edges of her chest markings. Kind of nice how that stands out. I think last thing I will do before we wrap this up is I'm going to start over here right above my waves, because I want a little bit of the river to kind of stand out just a little bit more. So I'm going to put just a small bit of shading right on top of that. And boy, I really, at this point, I can barely press. I have to be super duper light. And I'm using a little bit of the side of the pencil too, and not so much the tip of it, to kind of help it be really soft. Like I am barely touching the page to get that to happen there. And I like the way that sort of it makes the waves stand out, because now the waves are not next to sort of this white space. The waves are next to this darker sort of sky. I say the word sort of all the time, so I apologize for that. Maybe as I do more of these videos, I'll get a little bit better at not saying that so constantly. I'm not saying a lot, but I am saying sort of. All right, last thing. I just want to balance out the picture by putting a little bit more shading up there. So you could do something similar where we can kind of keep this whole thing working together. That is my United. I am finally caught up on my daily drawings. For those of you Liberty Bell High School junior high students, I hope you are participating in these. I hope you're doing some of them, and I look forward to sharing more with you via video, and then hopefully here one day, eventually, if we're lucky, getting back together again in a classroom. Or after spring break, I think we'll be talking about some ways that we can share things together again. Okay, thanks very much, you all. Have a good weekend and a good spring break coming up. Bye.